Hi, this is Mr. Mike at the Mechanicsburg Learning Center. Thanks for joining me. We do this live every day, 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, live on Facebook, and then we post every video that we do to Mr. Mike Sgrignoli YouTube page. So thanks for tuning in, clicking by, and saying hello. Great animal to talk about today. An animal that for the longest time, I mispronounced its name, I have to admit, because it had that pesky extra letter in the middle of it, the letter O, that changes everything. Longest time I pronounced it Giganotosaurus. Giganotosaurus. And then someone pointed out to me, wait, Mr. Mike, there's an O in the middle of that, which changes it from Gigantosaurus to Giganotosaurus. So today's animal is Giganotosaurus. Here's a look at old Gigo. See if we can stand up here for us. So at first glance, Giganotosaurus looks an awful lot like our friend T-Rex. So here's a comparison to the T-Rex. All right, so very similar. Very similar. In actuality, when Giganotosaurus was discovered, they were very excited. Admittedly so. There was a good reason to be excited because Giganotosaurus certainly looked like it was just a wee bit larger than T-Rex, which always makes really the public very excited about new dinosaur discoveries. It's nice if you're the paleontologist and you can say you discovered the world's largest carnivorous beast or whatever, but scientists are more intrigued by what the animal brings to the table, what makes it a little bit different. And when you compare the T-Rex model to this Giganotosaurus model, there's some striking differences. First of all, let's look at the hands. Okay, the hands have 3 claws. T-Rex has 2. So there's one difference right off the bat. The skull itself of the animal is pretty different. Look at the T-Rex from this angle. Kind of robust. Now let's look at the teeth. You know those banana-sized chompers that it had. Giganotosaurus did not have banana-sized chompers. It had big teeth, but they were sharp. And they were more shark-like. They were serrated, which means the edge looked like a steak knife, and they were very sharp. So take a look at the skull, how the skull is designed. A little bit thinner than T-Rex's, okay? So let's see that there. So the bite, not that it was a weak bite, but it just didn't compare to the T-Rex bite. T-Rex just had an extremely strong bite. It's actually more related and closer looking to our friend the Allosaurus. If you look at Allosaurus, notice the shape of its skull, kind of narrow, very similar to Giganotosaurus. So you can see right off the bat they look similarly. So the Giganotosaurus, the teeth were designed to bite, not necessarily to chomp and kill. Even a close-up look at the teeth reveal them to be, strong and sharp. But it's related to the Carcharodontosaurus, and the Carcharodontosaurus is like a shark-toothed dinosaur. So sharp, serrated. T-Rex, big, banana-shaped, long and strong for killing. This is meant more for biting, which is there's a difference. Whereas T-Rex might come up and grab an animal, poor animal walking by, T-Rex might grab it by the neck, bring it down and kill it. Giganotosaurus was more likely to go up to the animal, bite at it, inflict some lethal wounds, and then, like a Komodo dragon, follow it until the poor thing died, and then it would have lunch. So more like the Allosaurus, but always compared to the T-Rex just because of size. The public gets very excited because they want to know which is the largest carnivorous dinosaur that ever lived. And when it was discovered, now this was back in 1993 by a gentleman by the name of Reuben Carolini. So Reuben Carolini discovers Giganotosaurus, and they say, guess what, folks? This is the largest carnivorous dinosaur that we have ever found. Whew, pretty impressive. Unfortunately for Giganotosaurus, it didn't last long at the top of the list because good old Spinosaurus came by. We knew of it, but we weren't sure how to categorize it, and in fact, Spinosaurus is now the largest carnivorous dinosaur that we are aware of. We also know that Spinosaurus went swimming and went after fish too. Where does T-Rex stand now on the list of the top and largest carnivorous dinosaurs ever? For a while it was number one. For a long time it was number one. In fact, if you ask most people would say it's number one. Unfortunately, Giganotosaurus is now bigger than that. Spinosaurus is bigger than both of them. And T-Rex has ended up somewhere in the neighborhood of number 10 on the list. So there are about 9 other genus of dinosaurs that we know were carnivorous and just a tiny bit larger than T-Rex. It changes all the time. Another bone discovery may reveal, well, T-Rex was actually bigger, or T-Rex is now number 20 or whatever. But the science of paleontology is so interesting because it changes even though it's millions and millions and millions and millions of years old in the making. It changes all the time because we think new species and new genus of dinosaur are named and found almost every 2 weeks. So, Giganotosaurus occupied the top slot for a little while, but then succumbed to Spinosaurus in terms of the largest. He was about 40 to 43 feet long. T-Rex topped out at about 40 feet long, so you can see they're very close. However, Spinosaurus is about 50 feet long. Now, Giganotosaurus lived around 99 to 97 million years ago, whereas T-Rex lived about 67 to 65 million years ago. So this thing was about 30 million years older than T-Rex. It is related to Carcharodontosaurus, which I mentioned, the shark-toothed lizard, and Mapusaurus. So they are more closely related to Giganotosaurus than T-Rex is. So it was discovered 1993 by Reuben Carolini in Argentina, Patagonia to be exact. 1995 it is named by, let me get their names right, Rodolfo Coria and Leonardo Sagato. So they are the ones that gave it the name Giganotosaurus. What does Giganotosaurus mean? We've always mispronounced it as Gigantosaurus, so we just assumed Giganotosaurus meant big lizard. Incorrect. Giganotosaurus means giant southern lizard. And its second name, its species name, is Carolinii. 2 I's at the end of the word. Carolinii. Carolini, small c, because it's the species name, not the genus. Carolinii, named after Reuben Carolini, who was the discoverer of it. So it's slightly larger than T-Rex. Now here is where we get really confusing. Okay, so for the longest time people look at the name and call it Gigantosaurus because we're familiar with other things that are Gigantoraptor as an example. So we just called it Gigantosaurus. Then we discovered, well, let's put the O in the middle where it belongs and start pronouncing it, and we call it Giganotosaurus. Well, the thing that makes it confusing is there was in fact a dinosaur named Gigantosaurus. This was discovered back in 1869 in England, and it was actually a long-necked sauropod like the Brachiosaurus that I was dining on when you first tuned in. So it was a long-necked sauropod, and they called it Gigantosaurus, but they don't use that term anymore, so it's okay. But just make sure when you're referring to this animal, you don't mistakenly say Gigantosaurus. The paleontologist would look at you pitifully and say, Giganotosaurus. So, just in terms of you guys getting into perspective the size of these things, okay, Giganotosaurus, about 14 tons. And it's kind of hard to extrapolate the size and mass of an animal by a couple of bones, but they do have some scientific formulas that they use, and they think Giganotosaurus came in at around 14 tons. T-Rex came in at around 9 tons. So you can see Giganotosaurus, at least from a robust body standpoint, was larger. They think Spinosaurus could have topped the scales at 23 tons, being 50 feet long. That's a pretty gigantic animal. So when you have a gigantic animal like these guys, I felt it was only proper that I spend time and write an extra long poem. Usually when I do my poems, I do in the neighborhood of, these are called stanzas, 1, 2, 3, 4. Usually a typical poem for me is about 6 to 7 stanzas. We went a little extra for Giganotosaurus because the guy deserves it. He was at the top of the list for a while. He's no longer there. So he deserves an extra long poem. Giganotosaurus, Carolini-I by Mr. Mike. It's awfully tough to give a dinosaur a name unique enough to stand apart from ones that look the same. But if you want the public to admire what you found, the name must be pronounceable with traits that will astound. This dinosaur does qualify with striking attributes, but I'm not talking feathered arms or fancy bony scutes. I'm telling you this dinosaur in size rivaled T-Rex, and as a predator, it likely stood as the apex. So here's the name that's often mispronounced, and I admit that I myself had said it wrong until I practiced it. It's Giganotosaurus, which could easily confuse a budding dino scientist who hurriedly misuse. It's got an extra O within its name, which changes much and nearly makes the name something you wouldn't want to touch. Most folks would say Gigantosaurus, simplifying it, but trust me, this long name requires more time to commit. When it was found, it seemed it was the biggest carnivore, and for a time it occupied that slot. Not anymore. It does appear to outsize the illustrious T-Rex, but calculating sizes can be a tad complex. Unearthed in Argentina, where the dinosaurs grew large, and with its size the Giganotosaurus was in charge. Its teeth were flat, serrated, and were well equipped to bite, but they could not deliver with that kind of dino might. The Giganotosaurus likely nipped and tore at prey. It followed it until the bitten beast just slipped away. Then, gorging on the fallen animal, it had its fill, until the time it needed to go hunt for a refill. Page 2. The brief amount of time the dinosaur was number one should not diminish its significance for anyone. The Giganotosaurus is remarkable enough. It's just that his long name can sometimes prove to be real tough. But here's one final thing to keep in mind as you research. There was another dinosaur you'll find when you word search. The beast, Gigantosaurus, at one time did exist, but it's no longer relevant, so we've dropped it from the list. The Giganotosaurus for episode 64 of Mr. Mike's Dino-A-Day, brought to you by the Mechanicsburg Learning Center. Giganotosaurus, a formidable beast, now scientifically proven to be just a tad bit larger than T-Rex. So the next time you're using T-Rex in a sentence like, "Mom, I'm so hungry, I could eat a horse, I'm hungrier than a T-Rex," you should say, "Mom, I'm so hungry, I could eat an Allosaurus, I'm as hungry as Giganotosaurus." So thanks for tuning in. We do this every day, 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time for the Mechanicsburg Learning Center, live on Facebook, and then we post all of our videos on Mr. Mike Sgrignoli's YouTube page. So thank you so much for subscribing. We'll do it again tomorrow, 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Thanks for watching, and remember, Giganotosaurus, for the time, #1 carnivore.